8.2, the advocacy letter. Can I get a motion on this one? Councillor Dunn.
The council writes a letter to Dr. John Cowell, official administrator of AHS, to explore building housing rental options for healthcare employees moving to northern rural Alberta.
All right, thank you. Go ahead.
So, do you think it is really worth our while to be sending this letter? Should we not be saving our favors for operating rooms and stuff like that? Alberta Health Services isn't into housing. And anyone coming up here is made aware of what's available.
Okay, well, perhaps Sasha, you may want to speak on it because I know it's coming from your committee.
Defend my motion in committee.
Yeah.
You're right, Judy, on both. Well, the favor thing, I don't think this is much of an ask. This is just for them to explore options. I'm not saying that the intent when we brought this up wasn't that AHS is going to sit there and start building. They're not into that business, but they need to either accommodate, I mean, really this is going to get High Prairie to have visibility when we come and talk to the land. They'll be like, oh, it's High Prairie again. Oh, it's the land again. So there's no real ask. We're not asking for money. We're not asking for funding. There's no real favor here just to let, do you know how many letters the minister gets? This isn't going to diminish our chances for some other funding or advocacy that we might have. I don't, And we did a survey. So this is a joint health professionals recruitment and attraction committee. No, not recruitment, I was corrected. It's attraction and retention. Part of the gap is that housing here is scarce for the single professional, and they talked about high end. Was that the words used? Like higher end housing. So that's the kind of ask for them to consider. Maybe a grant, something will come their way. They'll put two and two together and say, oh, that might be a good development project for High Prairie because they just asked that there's no real housing for professionals. AHS spends a lot of money on temporary housing for housing some of their nursing staff, for example. This might be a better way. They own something. It might help their coffers too. That was the intent.
Because there are already, AHS already puts out incentives for working in the north. So you want to add, you want them to build an apartment building to house them. So how do we justify that to our other businesses who are struggling with employees?
Those employees would have a really nice place to live for options. They'd have this housing. It's not just an AHS housing facility. Maybe employees would come here more if they had places to live. So it actually helps the community at large, not just AHS and allied health workers. I mean, maybe one day you're looking to downsize. I mean, AHS is not going to build this. This is an ask for them to consider, the fact that it's a gap. We wanted supportive partners. AHS came to mind.
Right, yes, but AHS is us. We are paid through our income tax. So we just increased Heart River Housing's ask, and now if this should go through, it would be another increase, another building in our town.
We do have the nurses' residence in town. That's owned by AHS, is it not?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it is. Yeah. So they have in the past done some buildings. Like I say, I'm not. I don't know if this is going to change what they're doing in their plans, but it's just saying that we know that there's a need for housing in our community, and I agree with that comment. There is that, because I've heard that from not just health people, but other areas too, that are, the young professionals coming, whether it be accounting or teachers or other things that want to get here, and that we need better at that, and that's something that we can help to try and promote as a council, try to get a developer here.
So did they look into the availability on how many condos are for rent? How many apartments are for rent? How many houses are for sale and rent?
Who are you referring to?
The committee, yeah, the survey or whatever.
The survey was to residents, so those residents would have looked at options that were not viable for that. Yes, there are homes and condos, but it's the just the quality of residence that's offered currently. That's why this is a market for a more higher end, or just a different caliber of home. So yes, the survey came from people who've just moved, who are moving, who live here currently, and it was from around High Prairie and area, so including the county. And that was the feedback of AHS, people who work at AHS today.
No, I was referring to the availability that's for rent or for sale out here.
Yep, but they're not looking to live. When I looked at places that were for rent, they just were, in my mind, inhabitable. So yes, according to the inventory stats, there's inventory out there, but it's the quality of habitat.
And if I could add to that, it is a gap. That's what's missing. When they come here and they're looking for something, they're not seeing that. Like we don't have that. I don't know if the right word is more quality. For one, there's not enough. For one, number one, but there isn't that for that single or very small family to be able to move in. It's either a house or a very small older apartment, say, for example. There's the definite feedback that from that survey was a definite gap in that was identified.
Okay, Councillor Danaka.
So this letter says that to John Cowell to explore building, housing, rental options for health employees moving to northern rural Alberta. So it's not necessarily specific to us. It's like overall for the area. It's not saying, please build in High Prairie, etc.
If I could, through the chair, the drafting of that letter would basically emphasize the need, as the Health Professional Attraction and Retention Committee has recommended, but obviously there would be a flavor to say, in addition, this municipality is looking for, yes, it would cover both aspects in the letter.
I mean, it doesn't hurt to send a letter, but as Councillor Stenhouse said, I don't know if it's going to get anything. I mean, and I'm sure they're probably aware of the situation already, but I mean, it's just a letter, so who knows?
And in closing, I'll just say that you're right. There's no skin off our back. It's some paper and some time for administration. But the hope is that it might color, when they're looking at their budget and their planning and their strategy, it might say, oh, it might even justify them putting a grant or development grant that would help some private development. We're hoping that the dots, the circles connect somehow. That was the intent. We know that AHS isn't going to come tomorrow and start building. But
Okay, we've gone around this one quite a bit. We have a motion to send a letter. All in favor? Okay, it's carried. Moving on then to policy review, the electronic message board. Get a motion on this one? Councillor Stenhouse?
That council send the council send policy, the electronic message signage board to the bylaw committee for update and clarification and review.
All right. Sorry?
We do
Oh.
policies also.
Yeah, they have been, the committee has been doing policies and bylaws. But in the past, yeah.
But that's not the terms of reference.
Oh, okay, we need to work on those to make sure we're doing the right. What our CAO has mentioned is that according to the terms of reference for the bylaw committee, the policy shouldn't be discussed at that meeting. It should be bylaws according to that. But I know past practice has been, we've reviewed some of the policies at that. So,
We've reviewed the policies that council deals with, not all policies.
that's, yeah.
We've dealt with the policies that council looks at, like the flag policy, the sign, because that's sort of directly set out by council. Not all policies have been reviewed, because that's some of, like, the ones that are administration and we don't touch, just the ones that council has authority over or drafts we've looked at.
So, I think we can, I mean, the other thing is we can provide some direction also and say, okay, what is it that's not good? We can look at it, send it, and it can come back, or it can go to the committee if we find that that's a place where we can deal with it. So I think in general sense, what's the issues with this particular policy? Is it minor or big things that we'd want to look at? Because I know there was, at the last meeting, there was some discussion there about, well, who approves this? And it was, well, council approve what goes on the board, and that's not the case. There was some discussion that, a nonprofit shouldn't put their stuff up, and that is allowed too. So I know those things that were discussed are in here. They were covered. Administration was doing things properly, so that's okay. What is it about the policy that is an issue? Yep.
That is, when you read through it, it says, town sign electronic message board to aid nonprofit groups, nonprofit organizations, charities, events, and programs that are considered beneficial to the committee as a whole. So that's in there, but then as you read further to eligible applicants, it says applications for requests for the town sign electronic message board will only be accepted and considered from nonprofit and or charitable organizations operating within the boundaries. Sorry, that's not, okay, all requests that require advertisements that include commercial businesses and business for profit, individuals and organizations that are for profit for information will be advertised in the form of a town address. Can you give me clarification? Because I'm reading it as is for nonprofit, and in 1C, now it's the way I'm interpreting it is businesses for profit can advertise. It needs to be cleaned up and clarified.
Councillor Daneka?
Yeah, because that's where, because it says the eligible applications are, will only be accepted and considered from nonprofit and or charitable organizations.
But in 1C, it says from
But it
businesses.
says, as Councillor Stenhouse has pointed out, to aid nonprofits, charity events, and programs that are considered beneficial to the community as a whole. So there's a little bit of well, what is it?
Yeah, and I did look at C, and C didn't really make much sense to me when I read that. I don't really understand what they're trying to say there. It must come in the form of a town address. What does that mean?
Yeah, I don't know what
And
that
it's
means.
also stating
I
that
don't-
commercial businesses and businesses for profit can advertise. So that's why I
So-
say if we send it to the bylaw committee, let them hash it out, reword it. This was made up in 2014. It's time for a refresh.
So if I could, through the chair, if that's the issue, administration can take direction from council, rewrite the policy and bring it back. If you wish it to go to the review committee, that's fine. I can offer my interpretation and what has been my interpretation of that C since I've been with the municipality. There may be a community event that a for-profit organization in the town is sponsoring. We're doing a fundraiser for cancer research. That would be appropriate, in my opinion, to post on the board, even though it's a for-profit organization underwriting that event. If a business in town wants to provide funding to the beautification committee for an event that would benefit the community as whole, and they get sponsorship recognition, that may be, in my opinion, that would be appropriate. It would not be appropriate to have a commercial business saying we're having a sale this week, come into our domain. And so, yes, the wording there is a bit loose, but like any policy, I interpret the policy based on the totality of the policy, not a particular subsection. So the intent of the policy, I think, is good, and I read it as in totality. Yeah, there is some confusion what that C means. And that can be cleaned up. So if it's direction of council, I hear what, the concern is with C. I have no issues of redrafting it and bringing it back to council if that's the major item of concern. I would say from an efficiency effectiveness, having a meeting to deal with that of, the policy review committee is, that's what council wants, that's fine, but
No, we don't just do one a night. We do a whole bunch. When we meet, we go through a whole bunch, update them and clean them up.
right, that may be true. I've been here for a few
It
months.
is true, it's not maybe.
Well, that may be true. I'm saying, I'm not denying your statement, but I've been here for 3.5 months and there has not been a meeting of that committee, so.
I know.
And I think that's perhaps even a bigger issue is trying to get that committee going again, because I'm sure there's lots of those that need, and I know there was things in the hopper that were supposed to be coming back around to council, and we haven't got them, and there was things being reviewed, so. I think
Yes, because
that's-
we need to do the code of conduct, the fees bylaw, because there's been changes to those that haven't come through to be passed and stuff. So there's, I think, a few there that need to be revamped. And then, of course, we have that list that Marion had made of when these ones are coming due for review, because they'll be expiring in such and such a year, so they need to be reviewed and updated.
Yeah, so that is, I think, the bigger issue is that getting that committee going again. And I'm just looking here, we have Councillor Danaka, Councillor Stenhouse, and Councillor Wakel on that with an alternate of Councillor Martins to work on some of that. Because I know, yeah, I don't want to. One of the things that we had talked about before is not spending council time, wordsmithing and getting to some of that nitty gritty, doing that at that level, and I know we can look at what should that committee do? What does that committee have the time to do? The committee wasn't keeping up before. So we need to look at what the committee can realistically do and what can be given to administration to tweak and bring back and go from there. Go ahead, Councillor Martins.
So what is the role of Mackenzie Municipal Planning in this? Because they too have a refresh schedule that certain things come up for review and that they're going to, High Prairie's on the map for, High Prairie's, let's say 2023. So what is their role in is it to augment, or is it the committee that augments what they do?
I can take a stab at that, and then we can get, the committee is more there to work on bigger plans and projects like the recreation master plan, work on the land use bylaw. They are looking at, we've got in here, they were supposed to be working on a new telecommunications where they can put telecommunications in. So they're looking at those bigger things, and I'm going to say the smaller policies and reviews are the responsibility of the town and not necessarily bylaw. But with that being said, I know that they could offer support in certain areas and help with some of that if we needed it too.
They've come to some of our meetings, or some of,
They've provided us with bylaws when cannabis was becoming legal. They provided us like guidance on how we should write our bylaws, plus giving us options and stuff. They guide us.
Okay, so we can, I'm just trying to think here, we can take this back, look at it. It's a small, like what we're looking at is relatively small tweaking to this one. But I think the bigger thing is getting the committee going so that we can look at that and other things. And making sure there's a clarification on the terms of reference for that committee to make sure that they can do what they need to do and we can get them going. So your motion was to take it to the bylaw review committee. And I think we can go ahead and move on that one, and then we can go from there. All right, all in favor? Okay, that's carried. So take it there, and I guess just
that'll make you guys meet too. It'll kind of light a fire.
Exactly, 'cause there's a lot of things, like the
Yeah.
pen and that has been expired for a couple of years
No.
now.
Just who organizes and sets the dates? I know before, and this is going back a while ago, it was administration, but it was specifically Marion, but she's not here anymore. So who was doing it after Marion? I don't.
Rod was doing it.
Rod
was
was
doing
the
it.
CAO? Okay. So CAO or delegate to get that going? Can we get you to, okay, he's gotten that to get that going. Okay, moving on then to item 9. The High Prairie Golf Club line of credit guarantee. Can I get a motion on this one? Councillor Martins.
I move the council gives first reading to bylaw 01/2023, line of credit loan guarantee for the High Prairie District Golf Club, this 24th day of January 2023.
Okay, thanks for that. And I know our CAO has wanted to add in, or sort of maybe looking at an extension instead of every year or some other options for this, so we don't have to go through the process every year. But this one is just for 1 year, right? Oh, it's for 2 years. Okay.
So if I could, through the chair, this is a continuation of council's past practice. Lots of municipalities provide this type of relief and or guarantees on behalf of community groups. The golf course is operating on town-owned land. The thing that the mayor's alluding to is we're recommending a 2-year term. The term of the current bylaw doesn't expire to June. So the facility is in place to June, but if you look at the report in the middle, there's a little phrase there, once first reading is given, we're going to advertise and do what's required. sorry, the second paragraph, under discussion on options. In the past, it's been done annually. Well, that's not needed. If there's a long-term commitment, the better. But more importantly, administration is recommending to have a longer term, such as 2 years currently. This will allow the town and the golf course to get together, review this practice, review the aggregate levels, and potentially have an alternative mechanism that suits both parties better. Because it's my opinion that this isn't necessarily suiting, or it's not optimal for both parties. So there's a better way to do it, to provide the same guarantees to the golf course, and do it in a more economically, fiscally, the framework can be adjusted to provide benefits both to the golf course and to the town, and not minimize or have the town take on additional risk. So I won't get into how that can be done, but the agreement serves the financial institution very well. It doesn't serve the two parties involved very well.
Okay, so Councillor Stenhouse got her hand up.
Yeah, so I have to disagree with our CAO. I like this to come across every year. It reminds us that we're co-signing. It reminds us of the golf course. And in past practice, well, the last few years have been a little bit COVID, the golf course used to come in and give us an update on how things were going and stuff. And it's usually around the time that we renew their line of credit. I'm not against it. I'm just saying that this is a good time where they come in and they give us an update on what's been happening at the golf course, how things are going. So I would go for the I would like it to be yearly, like I say, to remind us that we are co-signing to a loan and keep in touch with the golf course.
Okay, other thoughts? Seeing one. My thoughts on it is, I mean, we've been doing this every year, and the advertising and all of that, I'm okay with a 2-year term on it. They have never used this line of credit that I'm aware of. It's always been there as a comfort in case it was needed. And I know the golf club is doing better. And at the same time, I do agree with Councillor Stenhouse that it is nice to hear what's happening with the golf club, and we can ask them to come in. I know, I think in here they were stating that our year-end financial statements will be prepared shortly, and they'll be forwarded, and maybe that's a good time that they could come in and share their plans for the summer. And we also have and I think some of that wasn't necessarily for the loan guarantee, but also when they were coming in asking for grants for various things at the golf course. They were asking for stuff on that. So that would be my thoughts, but Councillor Stenhouse, Councillor Martins.
I know, we look.
I know, I
so
just
much
look
alike.
over there. Yeah, you look
But,
so much alike. Yeah.
Right, I would still, if the motion reads that we'll give first reading to this, if there could be some sort of setup, maybe the CAO, we still invite them annually to kind of present. And I think you might have said that too.
All right. Yeah.
So it's really council's wish, as all administration is recommending, as the bylaws and all those processes, a longer term, it'd still be conditional on them appearing before council annually to give a report to council, but the mechanisms of doing the bylaw, providing the bank the information, there's a lot of stuff that happens other than this bylaw being adopted. There's all kinds of information that we then have to facilitate to the bank other than the bylaw. So there is administrative work attached to this. As I'm alluding to, and I haven't talked to the golf course, the terms of the bylaw are not in their best interest, and are sure not in the town's best interest. So if council could have some leniency, if I could have those discussions with the golf course, the agreement would be substantially altered, and it would be beneficial for both parties. Let me leave it at that. So the current credit facility, again, doesn't expire to June, so there's adequate time to proceed with it. But in the interim, we're basically suggesting that this be put in place because of the advertising constraints and all that stuff. And administration is still going to pursue those discussions with the golf course. And at the end of the day, the current structure, there's an alternative structure that gets the golf course what they wish, but provides greater security and is more fiscally responsible for our ratepayers than past practice.
All right, anything else on this? Councillor Wakel?
So essentially what you're saying is pass this, and in the meantime, before this comes into effect, you're gonna sit down with the golf course and hash out a better deal.
That's the game plan.
Okay.
And just so I'm clear, the motion was what was on here, right? That was to give first reading. Yeah, that's what I thought. All right. All in favor? Carried. And moving on then to our CAO's report and action list. Can I get a motion on this one? Councillor Wakel.
Move that council receive CAO Bill McKinnon's report and action list for information.
Okay, I'll turn it over to our CEO.
Through the chair, there's the regular items that happen in the role of the CAO. As I mentioned, the 2000 operating and capital RFD will be presented at the next council meeting. There's lots of external meetings happening. There will be discussions next week with Mackenzie Municipal Service on the administrative work plan. Of course, there's some policy stuff associated there. They will, at that meeting, I'll be hopefully setting up a date for them to brief council on the work plan as it involves the interaction of council. Again, outstanding claims, DRP, they're progressing. Strategic priority meeting happened. There was various compliance reports that were provided to utility related to our gas utility. So this time of year, there's all kinds of compliance reports that staff have to do to WCB, to Revenue Canada, to a bunch of agencies, and the gas utility is one that requires reporting. And that's about it. There are a couple items that I can brief council, but they'd have to be in camera. On the outstanding list, I've asked our legislative individual that is an oversight on my part. There is one outstanding item from the last council meeting, which is the funding for the STARS organization. As council members are aware, there was discussions during our budget deliberations of a change in policy and direction there. So I'd like just to put that on the outstanding list so it doesn't get lost, per se. And that concludes my report.
All right, questions, comments for a CEO? Birthday girl tonight, Councillor Birthday Girl.
Can you update what the issue is at the pool that they're closed, please?
Sure. During what was thought routine maintenance turned into a larger issue. So basically there is a fundamental breakdown in the core component of the boiler. That requires replacement parts. Those replacement parts aren't available. The boiler cannot be restarted currently. It will not meet health and safety requirements and the like. Therefore, there's no hot water. The pool can't be heated. Other components, you know, the hot tub. So the bottom line is, we can't operate the pool up to the required standard. We're dealing with the external contractor to acquire those parts. We will have better timelines, and council will be updated shortly. So the posting on the website basically said, stay tuned. Again, we don't have all the answers, so it's a stay tuned. But it's likely that the earliest the facility would be operational would be a minimum of 2 weeks, based on parts being acquired and the like. I'm not gonna provide council with an upside of potential. We have some preliminary cost estimates, as, through discussions with staff. We're not expecting it, like, it's gonna cost money, but it's not a major rebuild, and it's not a major capital expenditure. So the preliminary estimates are modest, let me leave it at that, but it's early, and we need a bit more time to refine those potential scope of the work plan. It potentially could be, it's a bad news story that we're losing the facility. Just want to assure council and the public that during our normal shutdown, staff do undertake significant preventive maintenance. Over the last 2 years at least, critical components have been incorporated into those annual shutdowns for inspections and the like. So we're improving. Again, this was basically a mechanical failure that could not be foreseen, and it's unfortunate. Again, I don't want to throw any cost estimates out, but let me just say the cost estimates currently are very, very manageable, and it's just the availability of parts and acquiring those replacement parts that's the challenge.
All right. Anything else? Councillor
Can-
Stenhouse.
Can you give us any information on what happened on Highway 2 today?
Sure. The physical work was undertaken today, but for the last 4 days, there's minimum 4 days, there was a water leak, and the water was, again, surfacing. So the dig was undertaken, the pipe, basically the coupling eroded. That's been repaired. All work has been completed, and the road should be fully reinstated. At 4 o'clock, they were backfilling the hole, and all repairs were undertaken. So that should be fully operational with a minor uneven pavement tomorrow.
So with that being said, that's the provincial highway and they usually pave it. Are we picking up the cost to pave that patch?
Obviously, we're required to do some remediatory work. Again, since it is a provincial highway, we're stuck with, we could not shut the highway down. We don't have authority to do that as a municipality. There was some lane restrictions. Those seemed to work fairly well, caused some minor delays, maybe a bit of confusion for people not used to that road segment. We will be discussing the potential cost recoveries with provincial officials.
All right. Councillor Martins.
What is the ACAN acronym, Bill?
I had that down.
The ACAN acronym, ACAN, the strategic planning with ACAN.
Right. It's Alberta Central Alliance. Sorry, it escapes me right now, but it's the
Oh, it's the Alberta North Central?
North Central.
ANCA. Oh, okay. The letters are wrong.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
did
okay.
I
Yeah, the acronym is wrong.
flip it around? Okay,
Yeah.
sorry.
How was that meeting? How was the,
I believe the mayor provided an update.
oh, it was the last,
It was the
nothing
last,
new.
yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize you had attended, okay.
Yeah. There is an upcoming one. Yeah.
Sorry, if I could, also on your desk, which I didn't put in my but I'd like just to advise council that, through the joint recreation committee, they commissioned the survey is now on the website, the information's before you. It basically deals with 3 initiatives. The joint rec committee was dealing with the splash pad, the off-dog lease, and the components that would potentially go into a regional multiplex. So the survey is now up and running. It's available through various mechanisms. Paper forms will be available for those who are not able to participate, but again, it's late-breaking news, and here it is. I know the rec committee's been working on this over the last year. It is out now, so the rec committee did give direction to proceed. And again, it's information searching right now. The survey asks some basic questions, but potentially will gather some important information to inform future decisions.
Councillor Stenhouse.
So I know that you were on the rec committee,
Correct.
so I guess this is going to be directed to you. Is this a good idea? Are we misleading the public in them thinking that we're gonna get a multiplex when we don't have the money for it?
We did talk about that and not wanting to set anything out there, but when we did our survey before, one of the top priorities of the community was a multiplex. So we don't want to say, at this point, we wanted to find out what people wanted in a rec, then we could even come back and say, okay, based on what you want, this would be the cost increases, right? And people would realize, and that's part of the question in there, if you look, would you support this at any cost increase? Would it be 10% increase, a 20% increase? Where are people thinking they would support it? And that could maybe help us decide what kind of a multiplex we could offer, if any. What do people want? How much are they willing to pay? That's what we're trying to get at it. Trying not to say, yeah, a multiplex is coming. This is just getting some information to help guide future decisions.
Okay, so this, again, with these surveys, so anybody can, it's on Facebook, so who's ever hooked to it can go there. So I live out in Leduc. I'm gonna do this survey for High Prairie, and the question is, at any cost? And I'm gonna hit, yep, at any cost. How do we know, is there any way to control who's doing this survey?
Not that I'm aware of. Yeah, I don't think we can say, and one person could put in 5 surveys. Do you know the answer to that? I don't know the answer. But it's like most of ours. It's open.
Sorry, through the chair, if you do this type of survey and you want to do it low cost and do it in-house, these are the risks of doing this type of survey. So it's not statistically valid, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But there are some questions, like the first question, do you live in town, do you live in Big Lakes? Are you part of the Métis settlements? Like, where's your home base, so to speak? Or are you from Leduc? Yeah, there's risk, but again, the committee is looking for some information, no matter what, especially for the 2 projects such as the splash pad and the off-lease dog park. There is some financial information there and a blurb on what those components would be. So getting feedback on the more imminent projects would also be helpful. It's not perfect. If you want to do it perfectly, it's going to cost money to do it perfectly. And if we hired a firm to do a valid statistical survey sampling, then we would have control over the data points, because we'd only be contacting people with these area codes within these jurisdictions and the like, and it would be one-on-one survey hi, I'm so-and-so from Y station. So for instance, one of the councillors referred to citizen survey that was done in Airdrie. They didn't undertake the survey. They hired a professional firm, Y Station, to undertake their survey. In the prior years, they've undertaken it, and different consulting firms have got it. It's, there's a cost of doing that for sure, but the information back is more statistically valid.
But
Well, yes, I get that, but we send out a newsletter every month with our utility bills, and I don't know what they do in the county, but could we not narrow it down more like that? That doesn't seem to be a huge cost.
Problem with that though, Councillor Sendos, if I may, is now you've got paper surveys that come back to the office, and now we have to process that. So somebody's got to sit there and say, oh, okay, well, that's for, that's against, that's for, that's for, that's for, that's for. It becomes labor intensive. So it costs time to do it that way. This is a quick and dirty way to do it. It, like CAO said, it's not perfect. And all right, so let's say all of Leduc signs up and does this and says, yeah, build a multiplex no matter the cost. So we're going to get that information back, and we're going to look at that, and we're going to say, we're not going to go ahead and build the multiplex. We're going to say, what the hell? And we would probably have a town hall of some sort and say, okay, this is what we got from the survey. And people are going to stand up there and going to say, no. And then that's where you just sort of throw that part of it out, if that was the result that had come back.
If I could, just again, through the chair, none of these projects are in anyone's multi-year capital plan as of yet. So that's, you know, this is still very preliminary to get some indication of need or wants and give the ratepayers an indication of potential tax rate implications and provide some feedback. Eventually it will be, you know, integrated into the capital budget deliberations of both the county and the town, but we're not there yet.
Councillor Martins?
So I know it's on Facebook, as Councillor Stenhouse indicated. What about, you know, utility bills that are emailed to ratepayers? Can it, for those of us who maybe aren't on Facebook, can it go in other electronic ways, so that links provided? You know, I'm getting an email, I'm online anyway. There's a link and there's no paper, you know, and even with the newsletter, when Councillor Wakel was talking, I thought, why can't you put the link if it's something simple, or say, hey, the link's on our town website, you've got 2 weeks to do it. That way it's not just on Facebook, it's in other mechanisms.
So Kelly, our legislative coordinator, is an excellent speaker, so I'm going to ask her to address where she has posted it to date, because I believe that all has been done.
It's been posted on the Facebook page and the website today, but we can include it in our newsletter in February.
Well, what about the town bill? Like I get a utility notification, right? It's an email. Can you know, hey, here's your bill, but before you do that, make sure you take 2 minutes and complete the survey. Your feedback's really important.
Yeah, I can talk to Corrine about that and Corey. Yep.
So
When is the cutoff though for this? Isn't this?
February 15th.
Yeah.
So I don't.
We're probably
yeah,
going to be missing the billing cycle there.
Yeah.
Again, if we have heads up, we can put any notification on any bill and use that as a supplementary information source to the ratepayers, you know.
Yeah. Perhaps our friends at the newspaper can just put a little blurb in somewhere.
Right, and it will be in our column within the,
And be sure to include the county in that.
All right, anything else for our CAO? All right, seeing none, we had a motion to receive for information. All in favor? Carried. Moving on then to item 14.1, invitation. Or well, 14.1 and 14.2 2, can we get a motion on those?
How about 14.0?
Okay, 14.0, yeah. 14.0, can we get a motion on 14.0?
I'll make it.
Okay,
The council received agenda items 14.1 and 14.2 for information.
all right. Discussion on these? I think we should respond to the school board and say thanks. I know it's those additional costs and time for people adds up to what we've got. So I think that's, for me, is a big thing. But thank them for the invite, if you would, yeah. Okay, any other discussion on this? All in favor? Carried. Moving on to our verbal updates. We'll start with Councillor Birthday Girl.
Thank you. The only meeting that I've had so far this month, other than the ones that we were all at, was the museum. Not much to report there. The CFEP grant has been completed and submitted. I believe the deadline is January 31st, I think. Was it the-
It escapes me the date.
Yeah, I think it was January 31st. So anyway, that grant has been submitted. It's just a wait and see now, see what happens. The AGM has been set for March the 16th at the museum at 5 o'clock. There'll be an advertisement in the paper, probably on the sign. Anybody who wants to join. Other than that, that was sort of the basic important things from that meeting. So I move my verbal report for information.
Any questions or comments for Councillor Danaka? All in favor? Carried. Councillor Dunn.
Just under the CRC, I met with the Santa's Little Helpers and Angel Tree, all the charity organizations that run, like the volunteer organizations that run through the CRC. And we met and they had a successful year. We do have some things to iron out for next year that they haven't run into in the past. So we're gonna start, because it's Christmas season that we mostly focus with. We don't meet now until October, but there are some things that we put down in minutes that we need to look at and possibly reframe and look at how we can do some things better. But for the most part, it was a very successful campaign, and we met the needs, I believe, of 64 families. So, and I will move my verbal report for information. The council received my verbal report for information.
All right, thank you. Any questions or comments for Councillor Dunn? No, they're shaking their head. Thank you for your report. All in favor? Carried. Councillor Martins?
I have no report. What I didn't mention last time was the watershed has its annual conference in Grand Prairie on the 15th and 16th. And the reason I didn't bring it up is because I didn't think that, it's something we would approve. We haven't in the past, but just FYI, now everyone knows. But other than that, no report. None of my committees have met.
Okay. Okay, no report other than that, so, yeah, I was just trying to think about it, yeah, we don't really need it, okay. My report, I had, the first time I attended the Health Foundation Committee, or their meeting. It was my first ever, and I've been on the committee for a couple of years. It was the first time I've met with them. They have had a couple of other meetings, but for some reason I wasn't included. Hopefully that'll be solved now, but one of the big things that they've done is they gave away about $275,000 to the hospital in various things. They've gave about $212,000 to upgrade the X-ray equipment to digital and a higher quality digital. They have about $2,400 for a baby scale in the triage room, $26,000 for a ventilator in the trauma room. They donated $9,500 for a laser therapy equipment in physio, and they were looking at $26,000 for bathing system in JB Woods. So they've been busy giving away some money to the hospital for some much needed equipment. They're also right in the middle of getting their charitable status. So they should have that, they figure, in the next month or two. And so anybody that makes a donation to that foundation can get a tax receipt for it. They also want to, they requested that councils push for a helipad again. They didn't want to let go of the helipad. They have, I think they said $75,000 set aside for some engineering on a helipad. I explained to them when we were there how we've been pushing in the past for a helipad and haven't gotten anywhere on it. You know, their comment was, now with the upcoming election, it might be a good time to try again. So that was their thing. I was planning we can bring that up at the intermunicipal meeting coming up, but that is something that they were requesting. Also had a meeting with Heart River Housing. As I'd mentioned, the Pleasant View Lodge addition, there's still a few deficiencies. They're working through those deficiencies. Some of them are seasonal, so won't be able to get fixed until the spring, like laying of sod and that kind of stuff. So most of them are done. The big one that was outstanding was the humidifier. It was in, it was connected, but the controls weren't working quite right, and they had to have them come in and work on that. That was the biggest item, but otherwise fairly minor. Fox Creek, we know that they are looking at getting their occupancy permit. They had a few deficiencies. I imagine those have all been cleaned up. They were hoping to have people moving in by Friday, so that one is opening up. And it's supposed to be, if you get a chance, you can go poke your head into the great Greenview room, because Greenview sponsored a huge sort of meeting hall and inside of that building, and they paid for it, and it's supposed to be quite impressive. The Heart River Housing found out from the province that there's no increase in their budget, which they're concerned with a little bit, especially with inflation and, you know, utilities going up. However, the minister did say that maybe in March, when they have their new budget, that might change. The province offered some properties in Fost to Heart River Housing. So Heart River Housing would take them over. They would come with some capital upgrade dollars, but then they would no longer fund any of the operating costs for them.
You know which properties?
Yeah, it's those ones that they've had there. There's 6 houses, and
Across from the school.
Yes, yeah, yeah. 6 houses, and there's 2 sort of condos of 4 or 5 apartments in there. But they're older, they're not in great shape. Yeah, so that's one of their decisions. They're looking at it. They're going to be making, the Heart River Housing will have to decide on that fairly soon. I mean, you're taking over money pits, but it is a service to the community, and how much can you afford to run it? So lots of questions on that. And the other big thing happening, and Lindsay made reference to it, but we found out a little bit more, is the province is changing the point scoring system for social housing. So right now there's you know, if you want to go into one of their units, you are scored on a point scoring system. The higher your point score, the more likely you are to get into a unit. The change in, you know, where we were before was supporting more, I'm going to say, the working poor, the person that had a job, you know, with a job, they had to take their kids to daycare, they, you know, those kind of things, had to have transportation to get to their job. So all of those expenses, that was, I guess, more of the focus of the point scoring system, and now it's more of a focus on the unemployed person that's not working, might have, you know, a couple of kids but staying at home. And we're trying to, you know, in the past it was Heart River Housing liked to support the working poor, but it might not be as able to in the future with the new scoring system coming from the province. And I also had, we had a broadband meeting with Canadian Fiber Optics there, and just a little bit more on that. I think you can see that their vehicles are out. They are putting the fiber in. They had indicated they've got some more crews coming on board, so that they're going to be able to start ramping up a little bit quicker in the future. They are targeting mid to late February for lighting up. They want to have enough people hooked up so that when they do light it up, that they get enough money to pay for the backhaul and everything going back to Calgary and that kind of stuff, because it costs them quite a bit of money to pay for their backhaul portions of it. They were quite happy with the uptake of businesses and residents so far. They are looking for some accommodation for their workers, and they were looking for options, and I know I gave them a bunch of options to follow up on, so they were going to try working on that. So that was the broadband committee. Upcoming, we've got the recreation committee coming up on Thursday, along with the intermunicipal committee. There's also a meeting regarding Hilliards Bay Road, and also was asked to do a presentation of Jubilee Awards for a couple members of our community on Friday at the Legion. And there is an ENCA meeting coming up on February 6th, so those are the upcoming meetings. So with that, I move my report for information. Any questions? Councillor Martins?
So where does the Health Foundation, where is it funded from? Where does it get its money?
Most of the money came from, was bequeathed by Mr. Buchanan, Gordon Buchanan. That was where they got most of their money from. They have also done some fundraising in the community in the past, so fundraising and some money from, and that's part of the reason they're hoping to get that charitable status, so that they can receive more gifts in kind from people in the future.
So what's their mandate?
Their mandate, I haven't actually seen their terms of reference, but my understanding is it is for fundraising, it is for trying to help get equipment into the hospital where they can, yeah. Councillor Stenhouse.
I'm glad you asked that question, because did they used to be the Ladies Auxiliary? Is that the Health Foundation, or do we still have the Ladies Auxiliary?
No, we still have the Ladies Auxiliary. I know they did mention at that meeting that they've worked with the Ladies Auxiliary on a project or two. So they're both still in existence, yeah.
And you have nothing else to report on broadband? Where does the town stand with this company?
I don't have anything. We weren't able, the people that we were talking with at that meeting were not the, yeah, yeah. Councillor Danak?
I just have a question on broadband, and so when we dealt with broadband, we were dealing with, and Councillor Stenhouse has brought this up, when we were dealing with who to go, we went with Canadian Fiber, and we call them Canadian Fiber. So who's Northern Lights?
And
Yeah,
what happened to the Aurora?
good question. So Northern Lights is a subsidiary of Canadian Fiber Optics. So that's their sort of their working arm for getting that stuff done. Yeah.
So is that why we're having such a hard time getting that contract, is because you're dealing with Canadian Fiber and these are Northern Lights Fiber people?
Yes, in this case, I would say yes, because these are more the people on the ground, and we're dealing with, at that meeting, it was some of their salespeople that were at that meeting the other day. Not the owner or vice chair or whatever.
Or Jody?
It was Jody, yeah. So.
So we've been duped.
No, I wouldn't say that at this point, but yeah, we're still working on it. What?
Bait and swap.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. Anything else? Seeing none, I move my report. All in favor? Dawn's up, okay. Councillor Stenhouse?
I have no report.
Thank you. Councillor Wakel?
I think you stole my thunder on the broadband, but that's fine. The only other meeting that I had was the rural renewal. Christ, I can't say it. My mouth gets turned into knots. And I couldn't get into that one because I was having some serious internet issues. You know, we should really look at getting broadband in our community. I did speak with Deanna Bazarb after the meeting on the phone. The one question I know that administration had about it was these applications, do they come to the committee or do they come to council? They would go to the committee. They would not be coming to council. And there will be a further meeting to hammer out the terms of reference and everything properly and get that all done. And yeah, I was just really pissed that I couldn't get in. Swore it, tell us, well, 100 times. So, that's my report. I'll move that for information.
All right, any questions, comments? No, all right, all in favor? Councillor Yashishin, she can fill in any gaps that we left in the broadband meeting, I know.
Yeah, that's right. That was the one that I had the only meeting I had attended since our last general meeting. I don't know if I have anything to add to that, except, yeah, we weren't talking to the regular people there or owners per se in that. So, you know, some of the questions that, you know, would have been good to ask weren't able to be asked, I guess, at that point. But We did get a good update of their sales, and they said it was on, definitely on the up end there. They were quite excited about that, and just that they're ramping up again with installation and with some of the construction work that they're doing. So that was good to hear. They've got more crews coming in. They were looking for space. We offered, some of the names of the hotels, and Mayor offered if they come in and get a hold of us, that we could take them around and maybe some options for them. Otherwise, they're really commuting back and forth from one of the other towns. So, yeah, that's all I've got on that besides what everybody else has said on that. And I move my report for information.
I will, go ahead.
Do you have any numbers as to residential hits? Just numbers about how
I
many
didn't get any numbers. Mind you, I wasn't on unless one of the other, Councillor Boyko.
They said they were at about 33%?
I thought I got written down 43.
43, I knew there was
In
a 3 in it.
residential, yeah,
Yeah,
43%.
they're really happy with the uptake with what they've had. Yeah, 43. That sounds right.
That's what
too.
they say. Yeah, well, that's what I wrote down.
Yeah.
I think that's good.
So the people are signing up. Businesses are signing up. Just about everybody on that end of town where they have been digging have signed up and are anxiously awaiting it to go live so they can punt that other giant telecommunication hub to the curb.
So, actually, it's Councillor Yushishin's report. So, I've seen them go down like the main streets and in front of the school and stuff. Have they actually come into the residential areas yet?
They would be starting at Mayor's area over in the Pleasant View
Yeah.
area.
Well, I can see them. They're working. They came down alongside Pops and Revolution, and then they're at the college, and then they were starting to work their way down Pleasant View Drive. But they're just at the college now. They haven't gone any further.
So no. Do you know, like, are they gonna be boring, or are they gonna be it's gonna be an open ditch when they put in that line?
Well, they're boring for the main lines. I'm not sure what they're gonna do for the lines going to the house. Yeah, I mean, they had a plan with they were saying a special little plow that'll open it up, and as at the same time they put in the conduit, and then it folds up as they go along. So it's all done at once, but that's only obviously good in the summer when the ground's not frozen. So while the ground is frozen, I imagine they're gonna have to be doing some boring. And you can see that now because you can see they got one truck over here, they got all the conduit, and then they got another hole over here, and it's getting moved from one area to the next, and there's not a continuous dig there.
So it's actually her report. Go ahead.
Yeah, they were explaining that before, and it was quite some meetings. At the very beginning of the meetings, they were explaining how they actually they would come across from the drop and then across from there. So yeah, that was some time ago though. They were explaining that.
I'll address it to you since it's your report. But when the broadband committee meets, like, for example, this last meeting, did you guys set up the meeting with Northern Lights? Did you even want to set it up with Canadian Fiber? Did you contact them, or?
No, well, our CEO is working
I know,
on that.
right,
Yeah.
that letter.
Yeah.
Which is surprising, like, I thought they would have come to the meeting, or you asked them, or.
Just if I go through the chair, that group is really the operation discussions,
Yeah.
not the business plan discussions. So.
Yeah, so we are working on the other one too. And I can add that I did talk with, being just outside the college, I went and talked to some of the workers there, and they've got that one crew is all in town now, they're not commuting. So they were able to find some space here. I don't know what that means for the the new crews coming into town, but the other crews were in town now.
That's good news.
Yeah,
It didn't
that
take them
is
too long, so.
According to, according to the worker, they were able to get in town now. Okay, she'd moved to report for information. All in favor? Carried. And we'll take,
If I could, through the chair, I was remiss in my information update to provide council some good information. The RCMP has confirmed that they have advertised the dog handler position in its current location. That being said, the administration will still be pursuing the support and advocacy program that was previously articulated to council. Again, if they don't receive applicants in that location, they may consider other locations, but it is positive that at least the position's been advertised at its current location.
well, thank you for that one. Yeah, I was wondering about that and I didn't write it down. Yeah. That's good news. We'll take 10 minutes and then we've got a closed item you'd mentioned, so.
No, we don't. No, we don't. Do we?
There's nothing
Do we?
mentioned.
Did you want to?
There's
Did you?
nothing on there.
Oh, well, he did have one update he wanted to give us, closed
Oh.
session, so it won't be long. All right,
Okay.
take